A very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this panel discussion on unlocking India's upstream potential, a topic that probably resonates or connects at the heart of India's energy ecosystem right now. We are a growing economy that's in deep need of energy. We are expected to grow at probably 3 to 4 times the global growth rate on energy consumption over the next few years. And oil and gas is going to continue to remain the mainstay of India's overall energy portfolio, more than 30% by even 2047, as per our projections, which basically means exploration per se uh, continues to, or the upstream sector per se continues to remain a very, very important part of India's energy ecosystem. But we are not here to discuss the importance of upstream. We are here to discuss what will truly unlock it. And I couldn't have asked for a better panel for this. We have with us a set of speakers who have more than 150 years of experience combined between this group. And they represent operators, they represent service providers, they represent people who've worked in different kinds of emerging markets, they represent people who have been working on the cutting edge of technology, and they also represent people who've done some very massive collaborations globally and shown that these collaborations actually work in the upstream space. So, with that, let me just quickly kind of introduce my panelists. So we have to my left we have Martin White. He's SVP Asia Pacific for Halliburton. We have Saloma Yomdo, Director Exploration and Development, Oil India Limited. Rakesh Agiwal, Chief Strategy and Planning Officer for Kane Oil and Gas. Wayne Beecroft, VP India and Mumbai High Director for BP. And last but not the least, Lee Dan, VP Asia for Reservoir Performance Schlumberger. So with that, I'll get started with the questions, and we've divided this into three broad rounds. We'll start with kind of just getting the policy ambition in place. This will basically be interacting with our operator colleagues on the panel to get a sense of how they see India's vision panning out, and then we'll quickly get into the how of it. So speaking to the panelists regarding technologies, partnerships, and what will it take to de-risk the sector at the same, and then eventually we'll end with execution challenges and what does it take to create an ecosystem. So with that, Rakesh, let me come to you first. And with the ORDA reforms and the announcement of Samudra Manthan by our Honorable Prime Minister on 15th August, there is obviously a huge impetus on upstream. And from your standpoint, what could be some of the lessons or best practice interventions which will be most decisive in converting India's deepwater ambitions into reality?
Thanks, Saurav. And good afternoon to all. So, Saurav, in recent times, government has basically set the tone for the deep water exploration and extraction. So, but despite this current progress, the past knowledge is very, very limited in terms of the experiences that within India that we have. So, first of all, a process has to happen in terms of capturing the exploration and the development campaigns, both successes and failures alike, as to what has gone right and what has gone wrong in these campaigns. So that is the first most thing. Today, India doesn't have that. Secondly, I would say that systematic engagement with international oil companies who have already got these best practices available. How do we basically move in terms of getting that experience into India? Third, I would say is the people capability, how to basically enhance that capability. And fourth, I would combine in terms of there are 4 or 5 aspects which needs to be very clear over here, like the subsurface understanding, the detailed engineering part of it, the contracting strategy, and then the execution challenges that one faces. And alike to that is what the service providers are developing the entire ecosystems, the rigs, the subsea equipments, the FPSO, as well as the other specialized services that are required for deep water. And last but not the least is the regulatory framework around that, in terms of what it takes to basically make things fit for purpose, and with predictable timelines, because that plays a very important role in the oil and gas sector. How do you basically make things happen as per the schedule? So, but it is still in early stages, so there is a lot of learning curve required to basically make things happen for National Deepwater mission.
No, thanks, Rakesh. And interestingly, the points that you mentioned around capabilities, partnership, ecosystem, regulatory framework, we will probably be touching upon each of these aspects as we kind of go along, because each of them are very critical to what we need to get to be successful in our ambition. But before that, I will move to Saloma, and you know, I'm kind of going back in time a bit. Uh, just last year, Saloma, if you recall, or rather a couple of years ago, at this very place in Goa, we were on a panel, and there was a conversation around how OIL was looking to get into deep water at that point in time. There was an ambition. A lot of water has flown under the bridge since then. There's obviously a much bigger foray now from your standpoint. So it'll be good to understand your journey, what has transpired in the last couple of years, and from your perspective, what has really changed that makes offshore exploration a lot more compelling today than it was in the past.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Saurabh, for the question, and thank you for having me as well in this panel. Very, very enriching panel, as you mentioned. Well, if you talk about what we discussed a couple of years back and where we are today, let me start off by saying that a couple of years back, our acreage in the country was roughly about 45,000 square kilometers. And today, the acreage that Oil India holds in the country is around, say, 107,000 square kilometers. So that's more than double the acreage that we have. And interestingly, after the last meeting that we had a couple of years back, our offshore acreage has actually increased by about, I mean, the total offshore acreage that we have is about 55% of our total acreage in the company. And what has transpired in the last 2 years is that we have mobilized the drilling rig in Andaman, and as we speak, the third well is currently under drilling in the eastern coast, and the well is at a depth of about 3,300 meters. Our target to drill this well is up to 4,500 meters to target the Eocene. And as you remember, in the first well that we drilled, there are two objects which are to be tested, and since they are tight, we are going to go back to that well to stimulate it. Unfortunately, in the very second well that we drilled in the eastern coast of the island, we have been able to establish the presence of gas, which is 87% methane. And the indications suggest the gas to be a mix of both thermogenic and biogenic origin. And therefore, in the second well, we are going to go for an appraisal plan. And currently, as we speak, we are trying to mobilize a high-resolution 3D seismic survey of about 600 square kilometers to further delineate the structure and come up with an appraisal program. In the third well that we are drilling, let's hope, fingers crossed, we are 3,300 going to 45. And also, very interesting to note, you will appreciate, is that we have also spotted our well in Kerala Konkan, shallow offshore, which is at a water depth of 60 meters. The target for the well, we have capped it to 6,000 meters. I think that's going to be one of the deepest offshore wells in the country. Currently, we are at about 1,300 meters. We are going through a difficult formation. We are practically drilling blind. There is nothing coming out in the annulus. But in order to reach 6,000, we have to target two traps. And there lies the challenge, but we are up for it. And this is unprecedented times for the company, because this is the first time that we'll be having 3 offshore rigs operating at one point of time for the company. The third well we are going to spot in the mid of February in the KGDSF block, which will also be sort of an appraisal well. And so, yeah, very exciting times ahead. And what have changed? And why are we so aggressive and upbeat about it? I think there are 3 things that have changed. Firstly, I would say the amount of data that is available currently in the country. thanks to the vision of our Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas that you need to have seismic across all your basins if you want to do exploration. So unless the seismic program is run by the government, like we have done the National Seismic Program, we have done the Mission Invasion, we have done the Extended Continental Shelf. So quite a huge amount of data is available currently, which gives us a confidence to come up with proper geological models and prospect identification. Second thing is, I think, a disciplined execution. And for that, a lot of vintage data is available. It's very critical that we go through the entire reprocessing of the data in the current digital capabilities that we have, and also de-risk prospects by undertaking detailed basin-centric approach rather than block-by-block approach, which coupled with play-based exploration concepts will definitely help us to firm up drilling locations which have a better chances of success. And the third thing that I would strongly say is the new policy that the government has introduced in terms of the ORDA Act, in terms of the new Petroleum and Natural Gas Rules Act Rules 2025. A lot of good opportunities for enhancing or encouraging exploration. No revenue share to the government in Category 2 and 3 basins till there is a windfall gain of about $2 billion. You're free to carve out your own areas of interest for exploration. You are free to extend your seismic program beyond your allocated block. Like I said, it's now becoming a basin-centric approach and play-based concept. You are also free to apply for extension of your block areas if you think that the structural extent is extending beyond the boundaries. So all this combined together, they are making a very, very good recipe for success. And that's the reason why we feel that we should also take part in this aggressive exploration campaign before we lose out on the race.
Thanks, Saloma, and completely agree with the point about the policy environment being more conducive than it has ever been in the past. And that obviously gives a great fillip along with data and the other enablers that you spoke about. So that's great. Let me now, shift gears and go to Lidan. And for us to be truly successful at scale in Deepwater, it really needs, integration across geology, reservoir drilling, and production decisions, and bring those early enough, right? And from your global experience with SLB, where do you think operators most underestimate the value of end-to-end integration, and how do you see that?
No, thanks, Saurabh. Good afternoon. It's an honor to be here to attending the India Energy Week. It's great to see the excitement behind the Deepwater growth. But as Salama said, right, Deepwater comes with its own challenges as well. Normally, Deepwater comes with more complex subsurface, more harsher operating environment. Of course, the extremely high cost as well, right? So yeah, integrating geology, reservoir drilling, and production early on extremely important, right, for the frontier exploration and development. I wouldn't highlight what operator has underestimated. Maybe I just highlight some of the values which the early integration would bring to those type of operations. The first one is better subsurface understanding, enable better decision makings, right? So the early collaborations between the geologists, the reservoir engineers and drillers will help teams to refine the reservoir models, identify the risks such as overpressure zones, the reservoir compartmentalizations, and also the fluid context, right? And then enable the optimum well placement and trajectory designs, right? Second point I want to highlight is the faster cycle between the discovery to the first oil to the first production, right? So when the disciplines work sequentially, right, today, rather than in parallel, it delays its decision making. So when the geomodels, the well designs, and also the facility concepts can evolve together, the key decisions in terms of number of wells, the tree spacings, the host selections are made earlier. There will be minimum rework need to be done in the later stage of the development, right? Which is extremely critical in the deepwater economics. So if we do these things right, we can reduce the project risks and overall cost exposure, right? I think let's not forget the by far the most important is those early decision makings will enable the higher recovery and long-term production optimization, right? So we can make sure that the right wells are drilled in the right place. The completions and the artificial lift designs are aligned with the long-term production outlook and the flow rate in mind, and also the production system do match the reservoir deliverability in the long term, right? The last point is probably this early integration can really align decision makings, right? When all the teams involved in the decision making has a single source of truth, have really a common understanding of the trade-off and the risk involved, right? This will further involve, faster decision makings, at different technical assurance and the gates process, right? So I think it's extremely important, those early integrations for frontier deepwater explorations and development, extremely important.
Great points, Lidan. And I think given the high cost and risks involved in deepwater exploration, I hope everything that you're saying is being closely noted by the audience here, because some of this becomes very critical. But the other element that is needed to really make India's upstream story a success is investments. And we need almost, by our estimate, almost $100 billion in the next 5 to 7 years just of investments coming in. And on that note, I'll move to Wayne. Wayne, BP is one company that has kind of been very bullish on India. You've collaborated with ONGC recently on stratigraphic wells and also working with them at Mumbai High. How do you see international operators partnering with Indian NOCs to really attract this kind of capital into India under ORDA and the future OALP rounds?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Saurabh, and namaste to everybody there, and welcome to the panelists here. Just basically want to say before we start, I had the opportunity to talk to the Goa university students this morning. We have a lot of experience up here on the panel, and we've got a next exciting cadre coming through of engineers and geoscience, so they're very interested in what's going on here in Goa. I'm an engineer by background, so I'll just give you a simple formula. Work for us all around the world is basically national oil company plus international oil company or international energy company, depending on your flavor, plus a stable fiscal environment. I think that's our best chance to deliver $100 billion of investment. Hopefully it'll be a bit less from our perspective or a bit more, depending where you look. But as you said, what we've done in India, we've partnered with ONGC to set up this technical service providers for Mumbai High. We're working directly with them in the Vasahara office, co-located with the engineers and geoscientists of ONGC. We bring a lot of experience from around the world, from an international oil company. We manage a lot of the giant fields in the world, the Ramalas, the Burgans, Paleogenes coming in the Gulf of Mexico. That seismic technology, that digital technology, kind of what we're doing with our management systems, all of that is going into ONGC. And what I would say is, ONGC has been here a long time. They have a tremendous track record. They've got tremendous capability. They've got tremendous technology. All we're doing is supercharging kind of what they've already done. So it's a win-win from BP and also ONGC about what we're doing in Mumbai High, and you can look at the results. We've arrested decline and we're growing production in a very short time. So we're very excited about that. Equally excited to have our engineers and our geoscientists partnering with ONGC and stratigraphic wells. Great to see the wells going around. We're helping them with the seismic, with the shot point locations, with the well planning and the well execution. So again, partnering with the government to extensive amount of data they have to make the right decisions. So that's the first part of the equation. The second part is that stable fiscal environment. And I think when we look, about the changes with the ORD amendment and the HELP and the OALP, I think they have moved quite a lot and made some very favorable changes in, things like the lower royalties for going out to deep water, ultra deep water, I think is a very progressive stance. I think the revenue sharing model is something that's going to be a win-win as you start to push for early production and no longer worry about cost recovery and spend, simplifying how we kind of manage our costs. I can't tell you how many times in my career I sat outside of an oil minister's office in the PSC environment, getting ready to get shellacked about trying to justify why we spent money to get cost recovery. So this is, from my perspective, is going to be something that's really, kind of really simple. So, when I stand back and look at it, I think a lot of capability already exists in India. We're partnering, with the ONGC. I think you can partner with other companies as well. I think there's a win-win mentality in the regulations that are coming with the policy frame. And, BP's, we've been here since 2000, so it's not just in the short term. We've got partnership with Reliance in the East. We've invested over $12 billion, so we kind of put our money where our mouth is. We've got a couple of more billion coming with the OALP-10, I think, hopefully, knock on wood here. And, we're real excited on the journey that India's on and real happy to be a partner for the, for the greater good of the country. So,
thanks, Wayne. And, just obviously music to the ears to hear that the Mumbai High Partnership is already starting to deliver results. So fingers crossed, I'm hoping to hear even better things in the coming days. But coming back to you, Lidan, and I'm just taking a cue from one of the points that Wayne mentioned, which was around technology. And from a technology and subsurface performance perspective, what role can advanced seismic reservoir modeling and digital workflows play to really help in reducing the geological and development risk that is involved in India's deepwater basins?
Yeah, so from the subsurface and the technology standpoint, so advanced seismic, the reservoir simulations or digital workflows, right, are really about turning that uncertainty into something, the manageable risks, right? Especially in the deepwater type of basins where complexity and cost are very, very high, right? I'll highlight some of the technologies, right, in each different pillars. I think the first one is on the advanced seismic imaging, right? Things like high-density 3Ds, the full-form inversions. Now we have AI/ML-enabled inversions, right? Really significant improve our subsurface clarity, right? Really give us that better understanding of the complex structures, the strategic traps that we're looking for, and also the fluid presence, which will help us to, help the operators or customers to identify the prospects and reduce the risks of drilling dry wells, right, and the drilling hazards to a certain extent. The second is on the integrated reservoir modeling. It would allow us to quantify the uncertainties instead of, ignoring it, right? By combining the seismic, the wells informations, and also the dynamic data, we can test, the developed scenarios in different scenarios, really forecast the performance and predict the outcomes, right? With that, we can optimize the well the placement, your drilling trajectories, even before we commit large capital expense, right? It's important for deepwater again because every well we need to make it count. I think finally the digital workflow ties it all together, right? Today we have cloud platforms, we have automations, we have real-time data integration capabilities, right? We can really translate the real-time data into operational insights that enable that decision making in the real time. With that, we can improve the collaboration between the different disciplines, between the geology, reservoir, and drilling and the production. Also allow that rapid updates as soon as the new data comes in. With all that, we should enable the faster, better informed decision making and more adaptive to our development scenarios, right? So overall, we have all these good technologies. it really doesn't eliminate the geologic risk. It will still be there, but it will significantly reduce that uncertainties and improve that predictability, right? Give us customers the confidence, right, in putting that large capital investment right before we sanction the projects.
Absolutely. And I think in the next few years of India's upstream and deepwater evolution, I think technology is likely to be a big game changer, which could really change the way we've been operating so far. So, so far we've spoken about policy, technology, uh, strategic partnerships, and so on. But I think the one big element that we still have to cover is capability, because that's something which is so crucial to success, especially in a highly specialized area like deep water. And Martin, let me come to you on that, right? So from a services and execution standpoint, what capabilities need to be built or scaled rapidly in India? Because of course we do have certain pockets of capability, but what else needs to be done to really make uh, this a success?
Good afternoon. It's great to be here. Great to be back in Goa for IEW 2026. I think the easy answer is everything. Everything needs to be scaled up. I mean, the policy changes, ORDA, the plans that the Indian government have are, on a scale that's really not been seen globally for many, many years. Equated to maybe Latin America, Suriname, etc. But the scale is going to be enormous. And while India has a fantastic oil and gas business today that has scale, I think we're moving into deep and ultra deep water, and there's a range of skill sets, a whole set of skill sets that we have in the country, but we have to expand. So I think just from a capability perspective, my colleagues have been talking about early planning. Planning campaigns, how we execute, is going to be absolutely key, because we're not going to be able to find things off the shelf. We're going to have to build that whole ecosystem that's going to be the backbone of this industry going forward. So I think from a purely service company perspective, I look at capabilities such as we're going to have to increase infrastructure in terms of shore bases, LMPs, mud plants, cement facilities, all the workshop facilities, because as we go into that deep and ultra deep water, we're just going to need more of everything. And, that's not 2x a jackup rig, it's more 4, 5, 6, 7x of product, of capabilities. And, as my colleagues have said, this is an extremely expensive operation. We can't have rigs shut down waiting. So contingency plans, contingency tooling, contingency people all have to be present. So, I think as an industry, we have the capability to scale very quickly. And I think, as service companies, both, Halliburton and Schlumberger have great examples around the world where, we've been able to flex our organizations and expand rapidly. But I think the key bottleneck is really going to be, infrastructure support. So what I think this presents opportunities in India for is for companies downstream from where we are, because we need support. We need those shore bases. We need boats. We will need capabilities for cement plants and liquid mud plants. So the infrastructure piece is probably something that we all talk about, de-risking reservoirs with technology and the latest AI, ML workflows. That's absolutely critical. We have to de-risk that, but there's no point de-risking that piece and then not being able to get product to the rig. So I think we need to really think about the capabilities that India has today, particularly on the East Coast, which is now supporting 2 or 3 deep water rigs. If you're in an environment where now you're supporting 10 to 15 deep water rigs, then that's exponentially more difficult, and it presents great opportunities for business in India downstream from where we are. I think the other capability we really need to look at is people. India has a incredibly highly skilled workforce and a large oil and gas industry. But again, we're moving into uncharted waters, excuse the pun, and we need to make sure that we don't simply translate from what we do today into the deep water environment. So we have to look at plan forward. How do we train Indian engineers in the deep water space? Again, I think the companies on the stage today have the capability. We all operate globally. We have the capability to take Indian engineers into global operations, deep water operations, to really build that competence. And I think to me, having the infrastructure to allow us to do what we need to do, having the competence in the workforce to allow us to do what we need to do safely and effectively, that is truly the key, because without the infrastructure and without competent people, we can bring all the technology in the world to India, but it won't be applied correctly, and therefore we won't have de-risked projects, and therefore the projects will be over budget, and therefore the project won't be viable. And I think we just need to look at the whole ecosystem to make sure that everything on the critical path is there. And I think sometimes we tend to forget about what's downstream from where we are, and we need that support in India.
Excellent points. I mean, both on infrastructure as well as on the people side, there is a clear need to build those capabilities. But let's now shift gears and get to, the execution part of it, right? What will it really take to make it happen? And there, I'll again go back to Wayne, and I'll ask you to go back to your experiences across the world, including multiple emerging markets, and also, in deep water areas like Gulf of America, Brazil, and whatnot. The question is, what will it, how can advanced technologies and concepts like common hub infrastructure help de-risk and accelerate India's deep water thrust?
Well, thanks, Sarab. This great question, and I can tell you from BP perspective, I appreciate you asking it, because it's great to be back in the big oil game. So we have some great technologies we're working on in 2,500, 3,000 meters, kind of water depth. We have a 10 billion barrel play in the Paleogene in the Gulf of Mexico, Cascada, Tiber, Guadalupe. What we're doing there, historically, we tried to appraise all of the reservoir, and that would lead to an optimal facility design so that you can maximize production rate. We moved away from that probably about 5 years ago into more of a modular type of approach to get production fast. Maybe you sacrifice 20, 30,000 barrels of incremental rate, but you can accelerate by a couple of years by going with a standardized, lower cost facility. So in the Gulf of America now, in Cascada, we're getting ready to kind of start up. We've already sanctioned a 100,000 barrel facility that will be a cookie cutter for what's a 10 billion barrel oil field kind of in place. Similarly in Brazil, where we've had Bumerangue, which is our largest discovery in 25 years, 1,000-meter hydrocarbon column. We're looking similar ways to do early production systems with FPSOs, looking at sustainability for CO2, and we're looking at, as my colleagues have said, advanced seismic imaging, because that's the critical aspect to get a better visualization of the reservoir. So I think taking all of those together, those are things that we're bringing to India as learnings and technology. And I think, as it was said, the National Repository of Seismic, it's a huge, it's a huge data set. There's 25,000 terabytes of data in that. It resides in the University of Houston as a mirror image. So when I worked in Houston, I used to go, opportunity to look at this. But I think it was said, there's all different vintages of seismic there, 2D, 3D, different operators shot it, different processing sequences were made. We do think, in BP, it's how do you even start interrogating that data? So things like supercomputers and generative AI, machine learning, where you just kind of throw everything in the pot and, kind of turn it on. And then you start to couple that with the inversion that they talked about here from the stratigraphic wells. I think that could give us a real game changer of an image that, we can find the next Mumbai highs in the Deepwater. Because if you stand back and look at it, Mumbai high is 1,500 square kilometers. It's one of the greatest giant fields, probably the top 100 giant fields in the world. And we're chasing 1 million, kind of square kilometers in the open acreage. So we need technology, and we need it quick to unlock that. And then I think the final point, as you said, the common hub infrastructure, anything we can do to accelerate dynamic data. That's another way to appraise simply and reduce the cost of appraisal. I've had a number of write-offs in my day, so I'm trying to keep that, keep it off the books. And really, the dynamic data allows you to see much farther in the reservoir and make much more informed decision because you're proving up contingent resources, future reserves, and making making those investments more solid. So I think anything we can do, whether it's kind of FPSOs or tying into adjacent infrastructure, like we're looking at in Sarastra in the West, I think those are all good for all seasons. And so I think the seismic, the stratigraphic wells, the carbon-based hub infrastructure, and the last thing I would say, I haven't heard a lot at the conference, but the revolution in frac technology is moving out of shales, and it's moving into deep water. We're fracking our Cascada wells to go from like 10,000 to 25,000 barrels a day, and that technology exists, and we're moving that now into the deep water environment, and it's a pretty exciting place to be.
Wow, that's super exciting, and I hope some of those technologies are brought to bear to India quickly. Rakesh, just coming back to you, I mean, as deepwater and ultra deepwater emerge as a very important part of what we want to do as a country, what specific role must the government and the industry play to make, let's say, Samudra Manthan a success or the overall upstream push a success?
Yeah. So, see, for us, India, now deep water and ultra deep water is no more a choice or an option. It is a kind of an essentiality where one has to basically start investing now and wait for a long gestation period. So, from the government point of view, what they can do differently is one is while there is an ORDA Act, there is a kind of a conviction that the fiscal stability will remain, but that needs continuous refinement and reiteration. That is number one. Second is the government also has to put a kind of a risk corpus in some form. So whether it is the initial drilling risk or subsequently upon when the evacuation is required, how do you basically create a subsea pipeline for gas or oil evacuation? So that is equally important. Today we don't have that as a country. Third is the government can play a very, very important role in creating these strategic collaborations with the international oil companies. So how do we basically build that over the period? Fourth is that you have to open your fronts on multiple fronts. Whether it is OLP 10th round, it cannot just be that we go one block at a time. It has to be multiple block, has to be basically brought on exploration mode at one point of time. And then obviously many people have talked about seismic. So if you are able to provide the initial data sets, that becomes a very, reduces the entry barrier which is currently there for the foreign players particularly. As far as the company is concerned, what it needs to understand is that they are going into a high risk capital with a long-term commitment. So any deep water project will not cost less than 5 to 10 billion in that range. So they will have to basically be prepared to basically handle that kind of a gestation period when it comes to investments. Obviously, people have talked about capability and also that goes without saying that until unless you develop the skill set within India, it will not be easy for us to basically move transition to this regime of from the normal shallow waters to the deep water. And obviously, the collaborations again play a very important role with the companies as to how they basically get the best practices into the Indian system, how get the best solutions which are there into the Indian systems. So this is what the companies are required, is what I would say.
Great points again. Thank you so much, Rakesh. And Martin, just coming back to you, I mean, a very important part of success for us here would mean faster execution without compromising safety or cost discipline. And from your or from Halliburton's global deep water expertise, what are the failure modes or what are the points where projects typically lose the most value? And how can India avoid those mistakes? Because the good part here is that none of what we're doing is absolutely new. It has been done somewhere else, and it's players like you who've kind of been there, seen that.
I think, when you talk about execution excellence, it really does come down to that whole planning process, the early engagement, really building those collaborative teams across companies, across industries as early as possible, and planning and then planning some more. And I think, again, we've heard a lot about, making sure we are drilling in the right place, utilizing, modern imaging technology, AI-assisted workflows to ensure that we have the right plans and we know where to drill. And then I think it comes down to really having contingency plans. One thing we don't want to do is have a $1 million a day rig spread rate sat idle while we try and solve problems. I think we have to really do that contingency planning, scenario analysis, so we have robust plans in the event something doesn't go to the original plan, so we can make quick and easy choices. We all know the chain of command, the escalation points, and things don't get stuck in process. That don't need to get stuck in process. So I think the major failure modes, and failure probably means additional cost here. We can mitigate that, we can de-risk that just through that planning process by the early engagement. And I would say, don't underestimate the power of teams and having teams who know each other and trust each other and can feel they can work in a very open and transparent manner. That takes time, that takes effort, that takes upfront engagement. And that's key. And then obviously, as we go from, simpler, shallower wells to, high pressure deep water wells, safety is absolutely paramount. So again, we have to make sure that we have robust process safety systems, robust personal safety systems. And again, the team is committed to that safety first mentality, whereby if something does change, we stop, we have a conversation, we move on, because, at the end of the day, we can de-risk, but we're still operating in high pressure environments a long way from help. So we need to make sure that, safety remains paramount. But really, we can do that. We can de-risk through early engagement, planning, building those collaborative teams or the alliances, so that people are very, very comfortable having an opinion. People are very, very comfortable talking about challenges and problems in a non-judgmental way. And, the key to success here is how do we integrate that execution so that we are seamless and we don't waste time, we don't waste effort, and therefore we can deliver projects on time, on budget, safely.
Great, thanks a lot, Martin. And Saloma, just coming back to you, we're all excited about the initial successes that we seem to be seeing in Andaman, and fingers crossed on that. But let me, provoke you into by saying what gives OIL the confidence to really go after the Andaman Basin and the other ultra deep water plays, given the technical and capital intensity involved.
That's a very pertinent question. Not only capital intensive, but also very time sensitive. And our director of finance sits just next door to me, and we are the best of friends, and we joke around. I just want to maintain that relationship and not, ruin our relationship in terms of financing our offshore water campaign. Because, as I said earlier, we currently have 8 offshore blocks. Two in Andaman, 1 in Kerala Konkan, 1 in KG-DSF, 2 in KG deep offshore in OALP-9, and 2 in Mahanadi deep offshore OALP-9, and also 1 Mahanadi offshore with ONGC. And so the whole idea is to actually sequence our capital investment. Phase it out. Let me put it this way, that we would rather first invest on the quality of the data, and the reprocessing of the vintage, and the processing and interpretation of the new acquired seismic data. So even as we speak, we have already completed our 2D seismic campaign in Mahanadi and KG offshore. 2 ships are already acquiring new data. We have almost completed 40% of our 3D data acquisition program in Mahanadi and KG, deep and ultra deep water offshores. And so the whole idea is that we have to have a very strong understanding of the basin, and also to have a proper understanding of the play there, and then finally with confidence, mature prospects which will finally undergo drilling, where the chunk of the capital comes in. And that's why I said we have planned it all out, that these are all phased, and every investment will be phased. And that's the reason why, apart from exploration, is very important that the revenue source that we are earning from our existing resources, production trend has been increasing, because until and unless you have capital, it's going to be difficult for us, I know, for financing our campaign. And it's also very important that you carry on your near field exploration to improve your reserve replacement ratio, and also to replenish the increased production levels that we are having through various IOR and EOR methods. And I'm very happy to announce that today we have our highest production ever in the record of the company.
Congratulations.
And finally, like we talked about de-risking, so we talked about collaboration. I think collaboration is very important. It's key, actually. For example, the first stratigraphic well we have spotted yesterday in the Andaman Deepwater. ONGC has taken up that campaign. We are partners with ONGC for the stratigraphic wells, where we'll be drilling 4 wells. And BP is, of course, our technical partner in this campaign. And so you can't ask for a better combination or a team to be working on this stratigraphic well campaign. And so the next wells will be in Mahanadi, and then in Bengal, and one in the western Saurashtra Kutch offshore. And so even in our scheme of things, in order to ensure that the capital due diligence is done in the proper way, you are also aware that we do have a technical service agreement with Total Energies. And we are very fortunate that we have developed a very strong bond with them, with their technical team and us. And for the next stratigraphic well campaign as well, which will be very critical for our future exploration in OALP 9 and 10. They are also helping us in the well optimization, and also the well design of these wells. So all these are certainly going to de-risk our capital investment in the future.
Fantastic. So we are nearly towards the end. So this is my favorite part, where I'll ask one question to the entire group. And mind you, and this is to the audience, 2 years ago when I'd asked this panel a similar question about what their wish list is, 2 of those things have come true. So be careful what you wish for. and let me, Lidan, I'll start with you. It's the same question to everyone. If there was one change or one thing that you wanted that could change in the entire Indian upstream space, which could really help unlock the sector, what would that be? And a 10-second answer, please, from everyone.
I'll take a little bit of proactive approach from the service company perspective. I would say it's our procurement process, right? The lowest cost bidder wins, right? I think the Deepwater has its unique complexity. We need technology. We need the world-class player to come in and drill the wells efficiently, safely. So procurement.
Procurement.
To reward the performance.
Yeah. What about you?
I'm just going to stay with stable, attractive fiscal policy. I think that gives us confidence that we can invest in, and made some great changes. Let's just deliver on it.
Thanks, Wayne. Rakesh?
I think what we need is a coordinated partnership between the industry and the government. Basically, it's a 20-year term that we are talking about to basically make things happen. So it's not 1 or 2 days. So it should be a coordinated effort between the government from the regulatory point of view, and the industry from the capital and commitment point of view, and even capability point of view.
Great. Thank you.
Well, like the government sponsored the National Seismic Program by covering as much area of the country as possible with seismic, so that's the basic start for exploration. I think there is already a plan for 4 stratigraphic wells. I personally believe deep and ultra deep waters are still uncharted territories, unknown. We need more stratigraphic wells sponsored by the government.
Done.
I think for me, procurement, yes, absolutely. But I think there's also that just real openness, transparency to new business models. And then how can we transfer knowledge easier from outside to inside? So, how do we, just a really boring one, taxation on expatriates. I think there's a real thing there we can do to really transfer knowledge into India quickly and get down the learning curve inorganically rather than organically.
Fantastic. I think great set of asks. I hope in the next time we are here, some of those actually
All
come to
five.
fruition. Absolutely.
All of
Fingers crossed on that. And before I conclude, I think I'll just say that my reflections on the discussion from a policy standpoint, the country has indeed moved the needle. I think there is almost unanimity on that particular aspect. What is now needed is execution. And to make that happen, there are multiple points that have been highlighted, right from the right kind of strategic partnerships to looking at technology in a big way, to looking at integrated planning across the value chain, better coordination between the government and the industry stakeholders. How can we streamline procurement and other processes within the organization, so buying them. A bunch of things that need to be done. None of that is not possible, to be fair. I mean, we've accomplished a lot more and a lot more difficult things in the past. I think it is time for India's upstream sector to rise and shine, and I think this is going to be India's decade, and I am really hoping that we see fantastic results in the years to come. So on that happy note, thank you all for your excellent inputs, and thank you, audience.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you very much.